Well, I'm glad you're here watching my video on YouTube. The fact is, I don't know how long this will be up, since YouTube has decided to start censoring me and pulling down my videos. But don't worry, you can watch this video on rumble.com/RandPaul, where I post all of my content. Love to see you over at rumble.com.
Let's bring in Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky.
I don't get it either.
Senator Paul, it's wonderful to see you again. It's been a while. So you tell me, I mean, look, I know Fauci very well. We served on Trump's healthcare, COVID task force. But can I go to Christmas or not, Rand?
Well, hey, this guy has an opinion on baseball, hockey, Tinder, Christmas. But he was asked the other day about natural immunity that you acquire after the disease. And he's like, oh, that's a really interesting thought. I never thought about that. I don't know. I don't have an opinion because I haven't thought about naturally acquired immunity. He has, and he's lying to you. The reason he won't bring up natural immunity is it foils his plans to get everybody possible vaccinated. He thinks it might slow down vaccination. And I'm for people getting vaccinated, particularly people at risk. But the thing is, if you ignore naturally acquired immunity, then you're saying we don't have enough people. You got to force it on ever younger people. There was a statistic that came out that somebody put together today. If you're 85, your chances of dying are 10,000 times greater than if you're 10. Should we treat a 10-year-old the same way we treat an 85-year-old? It's nonsense.
I thought, Senator, that natural immunity, if you've had COVID and you recover from it, was actually the strongest immunity you could have, perhaps better than the vaccinations. Look, I've had the vaccines, don't get me wrong, but I thought natural immunity was the strongest.
The largest study to look at this came out of Israel recently, and they looked at 2.5 million people. That's a large study. And what they found was those who had gotten the disease naturally were 7 times less likely to be hospitalized from COVID than those who got the vaccine only. Once again, this isn't an argument against being vaccinated. It's simply an argument for, giving some credence to the people who have already gotten this naturally and look at that study and say, I'm 25 years old, I play NBA basketball, and I don't think I need to be vaccinated since I've already had the disease. But it also changes public policy because they're trying to force this on children through mandatory vaccines, when in reality, we probably are at a stage, other than the Delta variant coming on. So if government wanted to do something right now to help everybody, particularly those at most risk over age 65, we should quickly be approving a Delta variant vaccine. They've got it. Why are we sitting on that? They gave Trump such a hard time. Trump got a vaccine done in record time. Why don't they get the vaccine done that we need now, which is an updated vaccine, and it'll become like the flu vaccine. Every year there'll be a new vaccine, but we shouldn't wait around for years and years. As long as it's voluntary, it should be a very quick approval process.
All right, amen to that. Senator Paul, can I just go to another disease? And that is this reckless spending and taxing disease that seems to have affected and infected Capitol Hill. President Biden was out in Michigan today, and he's telling people regarding, I still think he's trying to sell the $3.5 or $4 trillion or $5 trillion package. He said everything will be paid for and there will be no deficits. What do you think about that?
Well, this is another disease, and it's called Potomac fever. This is the disease that you get when you come to Washington and they think, oh, we can spend money with no ramifications. But it's a bait and switch. They offer you free college, free daycare, free cars, free cell phones. Nothing's going to cost anything. But in the end, you'll pay through it through higher prices in the grocery store, higher prices at the gas pump. There is a cost to this. But even more so, I think we're approaching a limit on our debt where we will have incurred so much debt so fast, more quickly than at any time in our history, that we could have a real destructive influence on the dollar. Not just 5% inflation, but sort of an unraveling of the system. Nobody's been smart enough to predict when these things come. 2008, some people warned about it in 2006 and 2007, but a lot of people didn't know about it till it got here. I'm warning now that I think we could have significant ramifications beyond what anybody's talking about because of so much debt in such a short period of time.
What do you think? Your colleague, Susan Collins, Senator Collins, came out yesterday and said if the Democrats would give up on their $3.5 trillion package, whatever it costs, then Republicans would join them and get the debt passed. What do you think about that?
You know, some might, and I think it's worth trying to find a proposal. From my perspective, I didn't vote for any of the spending or borrowing, so I'm not voting to raise the debt ceiling. I agree with Senator McConnell on this. He says that this is mostly a Democrat proposal. This year, $2 trillion in COVID money, all Democrats. This year, infrastructure bill, mostly Democrats. And this last bill, whether it's $1.5 trillion or $3.5 trillion, almost all Democrats, probably all Democrats. So they need to own up to the responsibility. If they're willing to spend us into bankruptcy, they need to sign on the dotted line and say, hey, it's my fault, I'm responsible. So when elections come around, we know who it is to blame for what's going to happen in the next year or two through inflation and possibly recession, possibly big correction in the stock market. A lot of possibles out there, and I don't think a lot of them good.
Janet Yellen this morning repeated her warning that we got to have a debt limit increase by October 18th, or else the roof's going to cave in and everything will turn bad. What do you think about that?
Well, it's always been overblown. We bring in more money every month than we need to pay for the interest. Interest on the debt is bad. It's about $300 billion, but we bring in about $3.8 trillion a year. So we have more than enough money to always pay. In fact, I've supported bills in the past that would prioritize what comes in so we wouldn't default, because I think default is a bad idea. But the thing is what we should do is then pay for the interest on the debt, and we should cut the budget the corresponding amount. So it would be about a, I don't know, 10% cut in the budget. We wouldn't like it, but guess what? Businesses do that all the time during times when they're not bringing in enough money. But I think they would get to, and will get to, raising the debt ceiling, but Democrats are going to have to do it on their own because they're spending it. They're going to have to raise the debt ceiling.
Senator Rand Paul, thank you, sir. It's good to see you. I hope you'll come back and visit us again.
Thank you.
All right.